2 eggs on a plate have about 1 gram of leucine. Your muscles after 60 need almost 3 times that in a single sitting just to turn on, not to grow, just to switch on the machinery. Below that line, the protein you work so hard to eat gets burned for fuel and quietly walk past your muscle entirely. And here is the part that stings. Because I ate eggs every morning for years, believing I was protecting my strength. The gold standard protein everyone swears by can leave an older body just short of the one number that actually matters. So I am going to show you 7 proteins that clear that line more easily than eggs do, which one to eat before bed, and the single threshold that decides whether a meal builds muscle or does nothing at all. I'm Dr. Tom. For years, I worked the floor of a busy American emergency room as a board-certified ER physician, and I want to be fair to the egg before I go after it. Eggs are excellent food. Cheap, clean, nutritious, a complete protein. If you love your morning eggs, keep them. I am not here to take breakfast away from anyone, but somewhere along the way, eggs are good protein. Hardened into eggs are the best protein for muscle, and that second sentence is a myth. And like most myths, it is not wrong because it is a lie. It is wrong because it is answering the wrong question. Here is the belief almost everyone carries, and I carried it too. We think building muscle is about how many grams of protein land on the plate. More grams, more muscle. Simple. So we count eggs, we count chicken breasts, we feel virtuous about the total. But your muscles cannot read the grams on a nutrition label. They never could. What they respond to is a specific amino acid called leucine, and leucine works like a light switch, as to not a dimmer. Below a certain amount in one meal, the switch stays off and almost nothing happens. Cross the threshold, and the switch flips, and muscle protein synthesis, the actual construction process, turns on. For a younger body, that threshold sits around 1.5 to 2 grams of leucine in a meal. But here is what changes everything after 60. And it is the reason I made this video. As we age, our muscles stop listening as well. Scientists call it anabolic resistance, which is a fancy way of saying your muscles have gotten a little hard of hearing. The same protein that flipped the switch easily at 40 barely nudges it at 70. Research pulled together by the NIH and geriatric nutrition groups shows older adults often need around 2.5 to 3 grams of leucine in a single meal to fully trigger muscle building, not spread across the day, in one sitting, and this matters more than almost anything else you will hear this week. Because after about age 60, we lose muscle faster and faster. The National Institute on Aging puts the loss at roughly 3 to 8% per decade, starting in your 30s, and it accelerates after 60. Some estimates say 1/3 of adults over 60 already have measurable sarcopenia, the medical word for age-related muscle loss. And muscle is not about looking good in a shirt. Muscle is what lets you climb your own stairs, carry your own groceries, get up off the floor if you go down, and stay in your own home instead of a facility. In the ER, I could often tell which older patients would bounce back from an illness and which would not, and it came down to how much muscle they had walking in the door. That is the real stake here, not vanity. Independence. So the question is not which protein has the most grams. The question is, which protein clears the leucine line most easily, digests in a way older muscles can use, and brings extra tools along for the job. By the end, you will have a shopping list, a simple per-meal target, and the one protein I would put on your nightstand. Let me count down from 7. Number 7 is Greek yogurt, and I know that does not sound as impressive as a steak. But 1 cup of plain Greek yogurt gives you about 20 grams of protein, more than 3 large eggs, and it does something eggs cannot. It comes as 2 proteins at once. About 20% is whey, which digests fast and spikes your amino acids within 30 to 60 minutes, and about 80% is casein, which trickles out slowly over the next several hours. Think of it like a lamp with 2 bulbs, one that flashes bright and one that glows long. Eggs give you a single moderate rise, and then it fades. Greek yogurt gives you the spike that flips the switch and the slow burn that keeps it on. For a muscle that has grown hard of hearing, that extra sustained signal is worth a lot. There is a bonus most people never think about. Greek yogurt carries live probiotics, the beneficial bacteria that keep your gut lining working. And your gut is where protein actually becomes muscle. You can eat all the protein in the world, but if your gut is inflamed and absorbing poorly, a chunk of it never reaches your bloodstream. So Greek yogurt is not just a protein, it is a protein that helps you absorb protein. This matters more with age, because our digestive enzymes fade over the years, and absorption gets less efficient exactly when we need it most. It also carries about 200 to 300 milligrams of calcium per cup, and calcium is not just for bones. Every single time a muscle contracts, calcium rushes into the fibers to spark that contraction. No calcium, no force. And it brings B12 for your nerves and iodine for your thyroid, the gland that sets how efficiently your body burns fuel and uses protein in the first place. Buy it plain, not the flavored cups, because the fruit on the bottom kind can hide 15 to 20 grams of added sugar and undo half the benefit. Add your own berries. On your next grocery run, that is the first thing in the cart. Number 6 is cottage cheese. And this is the one I would put on your nightstand. 1 cup of low-fat cottage cheese delivers roughly 24 to 28 grams of protein, and it is about 80 to 85% casein, that slow-release protein. Here is why that matters at night. When you sleep, you go 7 or 8 hours with no food coming in. Your body still needs amino acids for repair and immune work, and if none are coming from your stomach, it takes them from the easiest storage tank it has, which is your muscle. That is a quiet nightly tax on your strength, and it gets steeper with age. Now picture eating cottage cheese before bed. Instead of raiding the muscle, your body sips on a steady amino acid drip all night long. Studies on pre-sleep casein show it raises overnight muscle protein synthesis and improves recovery compared with going to bed on an empty stomach. You are, in a real sense, building while you sleep instead of losing. This overnight tax is one of the quiet reasons people lose muscle year after year without ever seeing it happen. You do not feel it. There is no symptom. It just adds up in the dark, a little every night, until one day the jar is hard to open or the stairs feel longer. Feeding your body slow protein before bed is one of the simplest ways to shut that tax off. If the texture holds you back, blend it smooth until it looks like sour cream, or stir in cinnamon and a few berries, or mix it with a spoon of salsa if you would rather go savory. 1 cup about an hour before bed. Now, some of you are already pushing back, saying you have heard eating protein at night will make you fat. That is the old myth, and it needs to go. Casein at night does not fatten you up. It actually carries a high thermic effect, so your body spends a real chunk of calories just breaking it down, and it keeps you full and satisfied for hours, so you are not wandering back to the kitchen for a bowl of ice cream. If you watch your sodium for blood pressure, buy the no salt added kind, since regular cottage cheese can run 400 to 800 milligrams of sodium a cup. Same protein, less salt. That one swap protects your heart while it protects your muscle. Coming in at number 5 is wild-caught salmon, and this is where the humble egg really falls behind, because salmon fights the anabolic resistance we just talked about. A 4-ounce serving gives you about 25 to 30 grams of complete protein, but the magic is what rides along with it. Salmon is loaded with omega-3 fats, EPA, and DHA, and a good serving carries 1,500 to 2,000 milligrams of them. Here is the mechanism that changes the game. Those omega-3s actually make aging muscle cells more sensitive to amino acids again. They turn the hearing aid back up. Research on older adults shows omega-3s enhance the muscle-building response to protein, which means every gram you eat works harder. They also cool the low-grade inflammation that quietly pushes an aging body toward muscle breakdown. Eggs have almost none of this. Salmon also ranks among the top vitamin D foods on the planet, and vitamin D is not optional for muscle. Your muscles are studded with vitamin D receptors, and low levels track directly with weakness, poor balance, and falls, the exact things that put older folks in my ER on a bad night. A single serving hands you 600 to 800 international units, right around what the National Academy of Medicine sets as a daily target. And there is one more quiet ingredient worth naming. That pink hue in wild salmon comes straight from a compound called astaxanthin, a potent antioxidant shown in studies to blunt muscle fatigue and speed recovery. That color is real food, by the way. In farmed fish, that same pink is often a dye mixed into the feed. Fish protein is also among the most bioavailable protein there is, meaning your body actually uses a very high share of what you swallow, with none of the digestive barriers some plant proteins carry. Choose wild-caught when you can, because it runs higher in omega, 3S and lower in the omega-6 fats that push inflammation the wrong way. And if fresh salmon strains the budget, canned wild salmon is a genuine steal. $4 to $6 a can, 2 servings, same protein, same omega, 3S, and the soft bones give you a bonus shot of calcium. 2 or 3 servings a week is plenty. Word of the ST. Do not overcook it. Keep the center just barely translucent, and you do not need to be fancy. Baked with lemon does the job, and canned salmon straight into a salad does it even faster. Now stay with me, because this is the part I most want you to remember. The part I would want my own father to hear. Everything so far has been circling one number, and here it is, in plain view. Egg protein contains only about half a gram of leucine per egg. Whey protein, which is next on our list, packs 2.5 to 3 grams of leucine in a single scoop. Do the math out loud. To match the leucine in 1 scoop of whey, an older adult would have to eat 5 or 6 whole eggs in one sitting. 5 or 6. And that is the trap hiding inside the gold standard reputation. It is not that eggs are bad protein. It is that the amount of egg an aging muscle actually needs to flip the switch is far more than anyone realistically eats at breakfast. 2 eggs feels responsible. 2 eggs, for a 70-year-old muscle, may be a meal that does almost nothing for muscle at all. That is the belief I most want to break today. Grams on the label are not the goal. Leucine over the threshold in one meal is the goal, and once you see food that way, the whole plate reorganizes itself. Let me tell you about a man I will call Marvin. Marvin was 71, a retired mail carrier outside Des Moines, and he came in after a fall in his driveway, more embarrassed than hurt. He told me he ate great. 2 eggs and toast every morning, a sandwich at lunch, a normal dinner. On paper, it was fine. But his grip was weak, his legs had gotten thin, and he had lost a step over 2 years without noticing. He was eating protein, but almost never enough leucine in any single meal to cross the line, and it was spread thin. His muscles had been coasting on a signal that never quite turned on. The good news, and there is always good news, is that muscle responds at any age. It is never too late. Marvin did not need a gym. He needed to hit the threshold 3 times a day and start doing something with his legs. That is the whole game. Which brings us to number 4, whey protein powder. Yes, it is a supplement and not a whole food, but it earns its place because it clears the leucine line more efficiently than anything else you can pour in a glass. 1 scoop, about 30 grams of powder, gives you 20 to 25 grams of nearly pure protein, and that 2.5 to 3 grams of leucine, exactly the older adult threshold in a single serving. It absorbs fast, spiking your amino acids inside an hour, which is precisely the sharp signal a hard-of-hearing muscle needs. There is also a way to judge protein quality beyond guessing, and it is worth knowing, because it cuts through a lot of marketing noise. Nutrition scientists use a score called DIAS, which stands for a measure of how much usable amino acid your body actually digests and absorbs from a food. Whey scores around 1.1, among the very highest on the chart. It is a clean, honest way to compare proteins, and eggs, for the record, score well too, around 1.13. So notice what I am saying and not saying. The difference between eggs and whey is not quality. On quality, they are neck and neck. The difference is dose and convenience. For an older adult with a smaller appetite who cannot realistically face 5 or 6 eggs at one meal, a single scoop stirred into milk gets you over the leucine line in seconds, with almost no fat and no cooking. A quick word on the types, since the shelf is confusing. Whey concentrate is the least processed and cheapest and works beautifully for most people. Whey isolate is filtered further to strip out nearly all the lactose, so it is the one to choose if dairy upsets your stomach. Hydrolysate is pre-digested for slightly faster absorption, but it costs more, and the real-world difference is small, so do not feel you need it. Use whey right after a walk or some resistance, when muscle is most receptive, or as a fast breakfast on the mornings you have no appetite to cook. Number 3 is lean beef, and here I mean a modest portion, 3 to 4 ounces, the size of a deck of cards, not a slab hanging off the plate. Beef brings about 25 grams of protein with a DIAAS around 1.1, plus 3 things eggs simply do not carry in meaningful amounts. It has creatine, which your muscles use for quick, strong contractions, the kind you need to catch yourself when you stumble, and which research increasingly links to better strength and even sharper thinking as we age. It has heme iron, the form your body absorbs best, and low iron is a common and quiet cause of the bone-tired fatigue a lot of older adults just accept as normal. And it is one of the richest sources of vitamin B12, which your nerves need to actually deliver the signal telling a muscle to fire. Think of it this way: a muscle with no nerve signal is a phone with no service. It does not matter how good the phone is if no call gets through. B12 keeps the line open. Choose lean cuts, keep the portion to that deck of cards, and 2 or 3 times a week is a reasonable place to land, not every night. Now, I know red meat makes some of you nervous, and that is fair. If your doctor has flagged your heart, your cholesterol, or your kidneys, this is a real conversation to have with your own doctor rather than with a video. And the plant option coming up next may honestly be the better fit for you. But for a healthy older adult, a modest, lean portion a couple of times a week is a nutrient-dense muscle food, not a villain. Number 2 is soy, and I put it here on purpose, because this is the protein for the person eggs and dairy leave out. Tofu, tempeh, edamame, and soy milk are the rare plant proteins that are complete, carrying all the essential amino acids, and actually clear a respectable bar, with a DIAAS around 0.9, far above most beans and grains, which fall well short on their own. A cup of edamame, or a firm block of tofu, can bring around 20 grams of protein, and soy carries no cholesterol, and a dose of fiber your gut and your heart will both thank you for. And let me put one worn-out worry to rest, because I still hear it. The old fear that soy messes with hormones in men has not held up in the research on normal food amounts. A block of tofu is not going to do anything strange to you. Here is the practical piece most lists skip. If you are lactose intolerant, or you keep kosher or halal, or you have simply drifted toward eating less meat as you get older, you are not stuck, and you are not doomed to lose muscle. Soy lets you hit the threshold too, especially if you eat a generous portion and pair it across the day. This is the segmentation nobody talks about, and it is exactly the person who gets left behind by the lazy advice to just eat more eggs and chicken. And number 1, the one that will surprise you, is plain milk. Yes, milk. The thing many of us gave up somewhere in adulthood and never thought about again. A tall glass of milk carries a natural blend of whey and casein, the fast bulb and the slow bulb in one. the same 1-to-2 combination we praised in Greek yogurt. Straight from the source. It scores about 1.14 on DIAS, essentially the top of the chart, higher than egg. It is fortified with vitamin D. It brings calcium for the bones that carry those muscles and potassium your muscles need to contract, and it is almost free compared with everything else on this list. Studies putting milk head-to-head after exercise have repeatedly shown it drives muscle building as well as, or better than, many pricier options. An 8-ounce glass gives you about 8 grams of protein, so 2 glasses with a meal, or milk, stirred into that Whey scoop, and you are over the line for pennies. The best protein for aging muscle was in the door of your refrigerator the whole time. Now let me give you the part that ties all 7 together, because a list is useless without a rule, and this rule is the real gift of the whole video. Here is the simple framework, in 2 numbers. First, the total. The RDA for protein, that old figure of 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight, was set decades ago to prevent outright deficiency, not to preserve muscle in an aging body. Those are 2 completely different goals. Geriatric researchers now point toward roughly 1 to 1.2 grams per kilogram for healthy older adults, and higher still if you are recovering from an illness or surgery. For a 160-pound person, that works out to somewhere around 75 to 90 grams a day, not the 50 grams so many older folks actually eat, often without realizing they are running low. Second, and this is the piece the grams-obsessed crowd completely misses, it is not just the daily total that decides things. It is how you spread it. Your muscle can only respond to so much protein at one sitting, roughly 25 to 40 grams, before the extra just gets used for other things. Picture a sponge. Once it is soaked, more water runs off the counter. So the winning move is not one giant protein dinner. It is roughly 25 to 40 grams of quality protein at each of 3 meals, each one crossing the leucine line, breakfast included. 3 switches flipped, beats 1 switch flipped, and 2 left dark. And here is why that lands so hard for our audience. Most people eat almost no protein at breakfast, a little at lunch, and pile it all onto dinner. That means 2 of their 3 daily chances to build muscle are simply wasted, every single day, for years. Fixing your breakfast alone can double the number of times your muscle actually turns on. That one change, evenly spreading protein across the day, is among the most powerful and most ignored things an older adult can do for their strength. And it costs you nothing but a little rearranging. I know the objection, because I hear it in the ER waiting room and I have heard it from my own family. I am too old for this to matter. It is the exact opposite of the truth. The younger you are, the more forgiving your muscles are, the more they will build off a sloppy, half-hearted signal. The older you are, the more every one of these choices counts, because you are fighting a current now instead of drifting along with it. Doing nothing is not staying even. Doing nothing is sliding backward 3 to 8% a decade, faster every year past 60. And here is Marvin, 6 months later, because I want you to have the ending. He did not join a gym and he did not choke down 5 eggs. He put a scoop of whey in his morning milk, so breakfast finally crossed the line. He kept a tub of cottage cheese by the bed. He stood up out of his kitchen chair 10 times before every meal. That is all. 6 months on, his daughter told me he was carrying the groceries in from the car again himself, in one trip, and he had stopped using the handrail on his own porch steps. Muscle answered him at 71 the same way it answers a 40-year-old, just a little slower, because he finally hit the threshold and asked something of his legs. It is never too late. That is not a slogan. I have watched it be true, and that is the one caution I owe you. Food flips the switch, but movement is what tells the body the muscle is worth keeping. Protein without any resistance is like delivering bricks to a construction site with no crew. You do not need a gym. Standing up from a chair 10 times, carrying groceries in from the car, walking a lap of the mall, wall push-ups by the kitchen counter. Pair the protein with a little effort, and the two together do what neither does alone. One responsible note before I let you go. If you have kidney disease, high protein is not automatically safe for you, and you should set your target with your own doctor, not a video. If you have lost noticeable muscle, strength, or weight without trying, do not just chalk it up to age. Write down what you have noticed and when, and bring it to your primary care doctor, because unexplained muscle loss can point to things worth catching early. And if weakness ever comes on suddenly, on one side, with trouble speaking or a drooping face, that is not a nutrition problem. That is a stroke until proven otherwise, and you call 911 right away and do not drive yourself. Let me tie the whole thing into one knot. Because if you remember nothing else, remember this one pattern. Muscle is not built by grams on a label. It is built by leucine crossing a threshold, roughly 2.5 to 3 grams in a single meal after 60, at each of 3 meals a day, paired with a little movement. Eggs are good food, but 2 eggs rarely clear that line for an older body, and that is the whole myth in one sentence. So here is your list, ranked by how easily they get you there and what they bring along. Greek yogurt and cottage cheese for the slow overnight drip, cottage cheese on the nightstand, wild salmon for the omega. 3S that make aging muscle listen again. Whey for the fast, clean, high leucine dose. Lean beef for creatine and B12. Soy for the person dairy and eggs leave behind. And plain milk, the cheapest complete protein in your kitchen, at number 1. Your one step this week costs almost nothing. Pick a single meal, most likely breakfast, and get its protein over the line. Add a cup of Greek yogurt or a scoop of whey in milk to those 2 eggs, so 1 meal a day is genuinely building instead of coasting. Just 1 meal, just this week. And notice how you feel by Sunday. If your parents or someone you love is getting thinner and slower and calling it just getting old, send them this, because it is not just getting old, and it is not too late. Get 1 meal over the line. That is your whole assignment. This is Dr. Tom. Take care of the muscle, and it will take care of your independence, your stairs, your groceries, your own front door. I will see you in the next one.